Adam, I want to get you this breaking news. Senator John McCain, who has not been on the Hill, and everybody is wondering, would he show up for this vote, has just tweeted. I wouldn't say this is entirely encouraging here, but Senator John McCain minutes ago tweeting, quote, as a result of Congress's failure to reach a bipartisan budget agreement, we are facing the probability of a shutdown or yet another continuing resolution. Either option will have disastrous consequences for the military. Hashtag pass a budget. But you know what, folks? The Republicans at this hour remain in a difficult spot because Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell needs 60 votes. There are only 50 available Republican senators right now, with Senator McCain out, and he can't even count on the rest of these Republicans to vote yes. At this hour still, 3 flat-out Republican no votes remain, as seen on your screen. Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Less than 24 hours ago, our next guest would have been the 4th on that list, but he flipped his vote late last night from a no to a yes as far as passing that stopgap budget resolution. He's on the screen. Senator behind that flip-flop decision, Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota. Sir, post-Trump Schumer huddle, tell us what you think. And somehow a deal seems to be at least in the works, maybe or not. What is Senate Republicans hearing?
What we understand is that there was no deal made, but they were able to get some guidelines laid out. And I think the president probably suggested to Senator Schumer that it was appropriate to have the deal done with Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell in the room, and that once that happens, he'd be more than happy probably to be involved. But I think there's something else involved here as well, and that is the fact that there's a lot of us on both sides that don't want to have a shutdown. It's a matter of getting to something where both sides are going to be able to save a little bit of face. I think that's the next step. And so I'm optimistic. I think we can get there. And at the same time, I'm just as tired as everybody else on these continuing resolutions. And part of the reason why I agreed to support this particular one was because Leader McConnell has agreed with us that there will be an opportunity for us to vote on the defense appropriations bill, which is what we've wanted for the first time this fiscal year. And I think that's also something that Senator McCain has felt very, very strong about. And for those of us that have been following what's happened to our military, we have to begin that process of rebuilding. And we can't do that without having the new appropriations process in effect.
Senator, though, and Cory Gardner was just on the screen, a Republican from Colorado. The Senate is active at this very moment. People are making impassioned speeches. Republicans, though, could really be in the uncomfortable position of tripping the wire of a government shutdown if you did somehow, if the president did somehow offer something to the Democrats that can get them on board. You have to give me a sense. How do you see that? And what would you say to the 3 senators, Graham, Flake, and Paul, to get them to do what you did, which is wiggle out of this pretzel position and vote yes versus no?
Well, I do respect their individual positions. I understand how strongly all of them feel about how bad these continuing resolutions are. Each of them has to make up their own mind. We've all got the same kind of information. I'm hopeful that perhaps having an agreement that the defense appropriations bill will come to the floor of the Senate for a vote is a positive move, and it's something that they would all consider. But in the meantime, I really do believe that there's a good possibility that we could find perhaps another extension here for a short period of days, not 3 or 4, but closer to what Senator McConnell was able to offer on the floor of the Senate last evening. Allow everybody to save face, but get to finality here. Let's get this thing done and move on. And most importantly for me, we got to quit doing these continuing resolutions.
Amen.
And I think everybody agrees these are bad for everybody.
Either way, though, and we're putting up on the left-hand side of our screen what happens if there is a shutdown. I suppose some people think it's good that the IRS would stop their audits, at least for the time being, but it's really not funny. And Mick Mulvaney, the budget director, had said earlier today there's a 50-50 chance of a shutdown. We're a business network, and Goldman Sachs, of course, tries to game these things. Goldman is giving this a 60-40 chance that we will see a government shutdown for a very specific reason. There are multiple reports from both sides that they are both, Republicans and Democrats, at least some people, essentially bragging on Capitol Hill about having enough votes to cause a government shutdown. Do you, sir, see any benefit whatsoever from a shutdown?
I do not see any benefit to a government shutdown. I understand that Democrats do have the votes to cause the shutdown, but I also think there are some very reasonable individuals there who really don't want to see it. I think they'll play it right up to the very end. I think there's a lot of gamesmanship involved in that, but there's also some cooler heads as well. And I can just tell you, everybody understands how serious this is, and nobody wants to go home and try to say we couldn't do our jobs, we couldn't at least fund government.
Yeah.
But that's countered by a desire to get away from these continuing resolutions, which we should simply ban in the future. We just need to get our work done on time. In South Dakota, if we did this kind of stuff, they'd throw us out of the state capitol.
Well, and again, you were the governor of South Dakota, where governors have to balance budgets, but there is a political aspect to this. It appears, though, if you look at all of the, I guess, the data jujitsu, on average, the party that holds the White House loses on average 40 seats in midterm elections when there's a government shutdown and when the president of that party has a popularity level that's below 50%. You worried about that?
Of course we are, but we're more worried about trying to do the right thing in this particular case. And by that I mean, you know, if you take the politics out of it, if you can, and you start talking about what's right for the country, pretty soon the politics follow it. So for me, a shutdown is not the right thing for the country, and neither is a continuing resolution. When you have to choose between the two, you don't have very many good options.
Indeed.
That's the reason why I, as part of my condition for voting in this particular case with our team, was to make darn sure that we had finality and that we would get, at the very least, a vote on the appropriations bill for defense in a specified time period. And I'm very happy that we were able to get that at least put in place.
Senator Mike Rounds, thank you very much. Moving from a no last night to a yes today, but we don't have enough yeses on either side here.